fans, comic geeks, and all nerds in between. My name is Megan, and I am here because I just finished watching the first 3 episodes of X-Men 97 Season 2, and I want to talk about it. So this is my review, this is what I thought of it, and I really hope you let me know in the comments what you thought of it. Before I get started, be sure to like and subscribe, because I have so many things coming, including a new episode coming out tomorrow or the day after, all about who Apocalypse is in the comics. So let's dive in. So, many of you know, I have been waiting for Season 2 of X-Men 97. Season 1 was phenomenal. Season 2, it kicked me in the face, I guess, in a good way. I don't know how to explain it. Anyways, so where do we start with the first episode? We basically start exactly where we leave off. The X-Men are in two different, not two different time zones, but 2 different eras of time. And Forge and Bishop are on a mission to seek out the X-Men. Forge goes to the future and Bishop goes to the past. So in the year 3090-60, Jean, Cyclops, Morph, Storm, and Wolverine are all reunited with the one and only Nathan. If you'll remember in the last season, Nathan was sent off to the future, which is where the only hope to cure his technovirus remained. This is where we get more of Mother Ascani, who was only briefly shown in the last season, and she had been taking care of Nathan this whole time, and she trains him up to be the X-Force leader, the one and only Cable, who was very heavily involved in the last season, which makes sense. This is also where we get our first hint at Apocalypse. The vibes were set, and the vibes were immaculate. Mother Ascani. Turns out Cyclops and Jean Grey have no idea who she is. They just know that she's someone who saw a prophecy about Nathan. They do not trust her at all. But I think it's very funny that Scott and Jean are championing for Nathan and his future to their own daughter without knowing that Ascani is actually their daughter. So I thought that was humorous. Jean and Scott try to take Nathan back with them in the time stream, but they are not slick. They are caught. Mother Ascani admits that she is the one that brought them through time to where she's at. And the first episode basically was all about Cable's origin story, which makes sense, but it was handled so greatly. And I gotta be honest, guys, I've never been a huge Cable fan. I don't know what it is. He was always just kind of there for me. Like, he has great stories. He's a good character. Just, he never got the blood pumping. So in the next episode, we are introduced to X-Force and X-Factor, 2 extremely different teams of mutants. Cable runs X-Force with Psylocke, Archangel, and now Jubilee and Sunspot. X-Factor is made up of some icons like Havoc, Polaris, Strong Guy, Multiple Man, Wolfsbane, and Siren. So they are very, very, very different teams, and they are not cool with each other. X-Factor is a government-sanctioned team that is scooping up mutants wherever they can find them and taking them to their little lair and putting them in the collars and really keeping them as prisoner. They're saying it's because they are doing it for the mutants' own good and they are going to relocate them somewhere safer. But, like, doesn't this seem so familiar? So, among those mutants, we see Kid Omega, we see Penance, a bunch of different mutant youngsters, and we even see the Stepford Cuckoos, which I have questions about. But this leads us to the classic X-Men opener has been changed with an X-Force one, and you guys, I melted. They knew what I needed to get through this week, and they gave it to me. So they made that specifically for me, guys. X-Force is hunting down Apocalypse's little boos, or in the more technical terms, Apocalypse's horsemen. They find War, and Psylocke goes in with her magic into their head, which is shocking for Jubilee because she thinks every mutant that has the power to go in someone's mind does it with consent. But, oh, our poor sweet baby. No, that's not how that works. But Psylocke pulls out what she can, which isn't much. But they do find a connection to someone who really likes diamonds. And my people, the queen is back. Emma Frost. God bless. Also, I want to point out, like, when they first meet Emma Frost, she was absolutely about to, like, have a 3-way with those 2 guys she was with. And they rudely interrupted. But that's neither here nor there. But I feel like no one is going to bring that up. But I feel like I want it known. So Emma is basically the middleman of the mutant world, and she puts X-Force in the right direction for the Horsemen, allegedly. Except it's not the right way at all. It's actually a trap for X Factor to throw some hands. And they do absolutely do that, but I gotta say, Havoc stays very faithful to his character and acts like a dink. But it's really, really clear that Polaris is the heavy hitter on the team, which is saying a lot because Strong Guy is right there. Ash, she is the heavy hitter. She's amazing. I love her. Jubilee calling Havoc the knockoff Cyclops almost made me like her. I was close. I don't have a problem with Jubilee in the comics, but in the X-Men series, TV series, she has always just annoyed the piss out of me. She has just, oh my God, she's so annoying. But this episode, it got me somewhere. So after that fight between X-Force and X-Factor, Jubilee is taken in with X-Factor, and we get to see a lot of underrated mutants. Like I said, we saw Kid Omega, we saw Penance, we saw the Stepford Cuckoos, and I have to know, does Emma not know they're there? Because if you don't know anything about the Stepford Cuckoos, you should know that Emma's basically their mother. They're a whole bunch of little clones, and does Emma not know that they're being held against their will? I want to know more about that. I feel like no, it's never going to get answered, but I still want to know. So, Polaris and Havoc, they try to break into whatever Jubilee knows, which is, like, she knows quite a bit, but she's also not going to tell you nothing because she has no respect for you. And Polaris kind of sees something there. She's like, hang on, maybe we are screwing up and doing this wrong. So Polaris helps Jubilee escape. Then Jubilee is the belle of the ball, helps the mutant children escape, and I am dangerously close to liking her. But X-Factor and X-Force, they come to blows over their wildly different approaches, showing how the conflict between Xavier and Magneto, that classic conflict, repeats among the next generation of heroes. Besides their whole conflict and their differing ways of going about life, I guess, this was absolutely Jubilee's episode, with it ending with her stealing a spotlight with her sequence of getting out of the jail and getting everyone out. And I have to say that I think it's going to be talked about for quite some time, as it gives me the powerful vibes of Nightcrawler's White House attack in X2, or Quicksilver's slow motion chaos in Days of Future Past or Apocalypse. Also, before the episode ends, we are treated to a flashback memory from Cable. Thanks, Cable, for that. You're great. That the X-Men were sent back to their present time by Nathan. And I thought that was pretty cool. And honestly, these past two episodes were nothing but Nathan/Cable trauma dumping everything he's been through. And I'm super down for it. Bring me all the trauma. So now we are on to the third episode. The other X-Men, Beast, Rogue, Nightcrawler, Magneto, and Professor X, are in 3000 BC with their new bestie, En-Sabah Nur, aka the First One, aka Apocalypse. We are introduced to Rama-Tut, who, if you were curious, is a younger version of Kang the Conqueror. En-Sabah Nur already has beef with Rama-Tut, and that's pretty much established. And that's established and shown clearly when he sees him putting the smackdown on Rama-Tut's people, aka Logos, with Baal on his side. Meanwhile, Professor X is very against this friendship with Apocalypse that Magneto has, but Magneto has to stand up for his bestie. That is his bestie. Beast is trying his darndest to create a machine alongside Rogue and Nightcrawler to get them back home, and he is not pleased with the outcome. It is not working. They seem screwed. We see next that all the X-Men are kind of doing their classic thing of having a little meeting around a little round table, and En-Sabah Nur joins them, and he talks about how grateful he is to be surrounded by mutants, and I think that's adorable because he's been a loner his whole life, which you'll find out in my next episode all about En-Sabah Nur. So I thought that was cute, but then there's Baal. Baal is a problem. That dude is just like, are you jealous that En-Sabah Nur has new friends? Because it feels like it. So Charles and Magneto are having one of their classic couple fights, like an old married couple. Charles is mad that Magneto told Ensabah Nor that there's a prophecy about him, that he is giving him some kind of hope that he completely made up. But in reality, they both know that Apocalypse becomes one of their biggest enemies of all time. And it's such a risky game, Magneto. What are you doing? But whatever. Magneto is pushing Apocalypse in the direction of having a more peaceful future, which is noble, but man, risky. Professor X is looking for the Temple of the Star Gods, but it is not going well, as Logos told him it's there, and whatever is keeping Professor X from finding it does not want him to find it, and it is obvious. Nur finds Beast's creation, trying to get them home, and finds out that Magneto has been lying to him. This is very unfortunate. And then our boy Bishop shows up and shows out, doing what he can to get the X-Men back to their time. So these 3 episodes, I was always questioning, why is it 3-episode premiere? But it makes total sense because there are 3 separate teams doing their own thing and we have to know what they're all up to. So it made a lot of sense. The show made this an incredibly strong start, with pulling from comic sources like The Rise of Apocalypse or even The Adventures of Cyclops and Jean Grey, which is a very deep cut because there's only like 4 issues. Of course, the stories move quickly as there's a lot to cover in such a short amount of time for the episodes. But like the first season, the show pulls it off and keeps you hooked onto every word. The fan service was cranked all the way up, which I really don't think is a bad thing. It's a great way to see mutants that are rarely used, like members of Generation X or the new X-Men. We don't really get to see them because it's always focused on the same X-Men lineup, unless you're reading these very specific comics, and not everyone reads the comics. So I think the fan service makes a lot of sense for the show, given how many mutants there are in the X-Men world, and how, whether it's live action or animated series, only really focuses on those certain X-Men. With Apocalypse's backstory digs deep into Marvel lore with the Celestials and even Rama Tut, who is the Fantastic Four villain whose connections lead back to one of the MCU's biggest "remember that guy" moments. Best of all, the show keeps revisiting Apocalypse's iconic Eternal Shore speech from the original series, the animated series, turning it into a prophecy that echoes across centuries. It's exactly the kind of nerdy attention to detail fans need, and I am so here for it, and do more of that. I did have a very few couple gripes, but they're so small and very much could happen later, so that's why they barely matter. But you're going to hear it anyways, unless you turn this episode off. In that case, don't do that. There are a few things I would have liked to see more of, like with Wolverine. Wolverine's massive power set upgrade barely gets a nod. Sure, he pops his bone claws, and comic fans knows exactly what's hiding under that bandana mask. Logan otherwise acts like the exact same grumpy Canadian we saw last season. He's been through so much since, and I just thought we'd see more like a Wolverine on steroids, I guess, but it could very well happen in due time. But with Rogue has been through so much, and I feel like this was just regular Rogue, which there isn't anything wrong with, but I expected a more hardened vibe from her, especially from what she went through in the last season. But it felt like she was really they were just kind of suppressing it, mostly settled for a handful of concerned looks whenever Magneto starts acting like he owns the place. It's less emotional fallout and more, we'll unpack it in therapy eventually. But like I said, so much happened in these 3 episodes as the energy was high consistently. So these are just little things I would have wanted to see, but at the same time, what do I know? I don't make the show. If I made the show, you guys would not like it, because I would take it out on characters I do not like. They would die. But yeah, that's really it. So that is how I felt about the first 3 episodes of X-Men 97. I am very pleased, very happy, and very excited to see what happens next. We did not get any mention of Gambit, but I feel like that's in due time too. Let me know in the comments what you thought of it. Did you like it? Were you let down? If you don't read the comics, what did you think of it? Because I feel like I'd feel differently if I didn't read the comics. I don't know. Yeah, I want to hear from someone who's not a comic reader. Please let me know. With that being said, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and have a marvelous day.